All right, so we're diving deep into Puro today. That's progressive utilization theory. And let me tell you, this YouTube video we dug into, it's making some pretty bold claims. They're basically saying, buckle up. Capitalism's days are numbered, and Priorat is waiting in the wings to completely reshape the world as we know it.
It's definitely thought-provoking. Preout isn't just about economics, though. It's this really comprehensive theory that tries to tie together how we manage resources, how we create fairer economic systems, and even how we grow as individuals on a spiritual level.
Yeah, it almost feels like they're trying to take the best parts of both capitalism and communism and blend them into something completely new.
Exactly. And they have this really fascinating idea about history moving in cycles. Imagine like a wheel turning. And as it does different groups, warriors, intellectuals, merchants, and laborers, they kind of rise and fall in power.
So are they saying we're stuck on this like hamster wheel of history? It's going round and round.
Well, according to PRU, we're actually at a turning point right now. They see things like the current economic crises and political upheaval as signs that the age of capitalism is coming to an end.
So does that mean they think someone like, say Donald Trump was part of that shift? He was seen as this big disruptor. But the video seems to argue that even he ultimately served the interests of the capitalist class.
That's one of their more provocative points. They're suggesting that despite all the noise and apparent change, the real power structures remain largely untouched.
Which is a pretty sobering thought if you think about it.
Yeah.
They also talk a lot about how China and India are becoming major players on the world stage, challenging the dominance of the U.S.
Yeah.
Do they see this as part of that same historical cycle?
Absolutely. Prial argues that the era of one single global superpower is fading, and that's leading to all sorts of tension and potential instability as these new power centers emerge.
Okay, so if capitalism is on the decline and we're entering this new multipolar world, what does PRU actually propose Woods do about it?
Where do they see things going from here? Well, this is where things get really interesting. PROUT solution is all about decentralization, shifting power away from big corporations and governments and putting it back into the hands of local communities. They believe that by giving communities more control over their resources and economies, we can create a more just and sustainable world.
So it's about bringing things down to a more local grassroots level. I'm curious, though, how do they actually envision this working in practice?
Well, one of the key concepts they emphasize is cooperative ownership, instead of businesses being owned by like a few wealthy individuals or corporations. They propose a system where workers and community members have a direct stake in the success of enterprises.
That makes sense. It sounds like it could really empower people to have more control over their livelihoods and their communities. But doesn't that require a huge shift in mindset? I mean, we're so used to thinking in terms of competition and individual success.
You're absolutely right. It would require a pretty fundamental change in how we view the world and our place in it. But Priory argues that this kind of shift is not only possible, but essential if we want to create a truly just and sustainable future.
They seem to be advocating for a complete paradigm shift, not just a few tweaks here and there.
Exactly. Priory offers a comprehensive alternative to the dominant economic and social systems of our time. It's not just about fixing capitalism or communism. It's about creating a completely new way of organizing ourselves as global society. They envision a world where everyone's basic needs are met, where economic power is more evenly distributed, and where we prioritize cooperation and sustainability over relentless competition and consumption.
That sounds pretty idealistic. But how do they propose we actually get from where we are now to that kind of world?
The video outlines a multifaceted approach, but one of the key elements is something they call guaranteed minimum needs. This means ensuring that everyone has access to essential things like food, housing, healthcare, and education, regardless of their income or social status.
So it's not just about making sure everyone has a job. It's about making sure everyone can actually afford a decent standard of living.
Precisely. PROU argues that true economic well-being is measured by people's purchasing power, how much they can actually BUY with their earnings, not just by the number on their paychecks. They believe that their approach, with its focus on local production, equitable distribution, and ethical banking practices, would lead to a more stable and sustainable economy where everyone's needs are met.
They seem to be putting a lot of emphasis on shifting away from this globalized system we have now and focusing more on local economies. Do they have any specific ideas of how that would work?
Yes, they envision a world where communities are more self-sufficient, producing much of what they need locally, They propose a transition towards cooperative farming models, where land ownership is respected, but management is shared, and profits are distributed fairly among all participants. They argue that this would not only empower farmers, but also enhance food security and promote ecological sustainability.
It's interesting how they connect everything back to this idea of cooperation and community empowerment. It's not just about changing economic structures. It's about changing how we relate to each other and the planet.
Absolutely. They even have a term for people who embrace this way of thinking: pradists. These are individuals who strive to live in accordance with PROUT's principles, promoting social justice, environmental sustainability, and personal growth.
That's a powerful concept. But realistically, how do they think we can convince people to embrace such a radical change, especially those who benefit from the current system?
The video acknowledges that there will be resistance, particularly from those in positions of power, who have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, but they believe that change is possible. Through education, awareness raising, and grassroots organizing, they see technology playing a crucial role in this transition, not by replacing human connection, but by empowering communities and supporting decentralized, sustainable production.
So it's about building a movement from the ground up, showing people that there's a different way, a better way.
Exactly. And they argue that the current system, with its widening inequalities, its unsustainable exploitation of resources, and its constant drive for more and more, is ultimately self-destructive. They believe that PROUT offers a path towards a more just, equitable, and sustainable future, one that aligns with our true human nature.
Okay, so if someone listening to this wants to learn more about PROUT and maybe even get involved, what are some concrete steps they could take?
The video encourages people to start by looking at their own lives and choices. Are there ways to support local businesses, reduce consumption, or engage in more sustainable practices? Can we explore alternative models of living and working, such as cooperative housing or worker-owned businesses?
It sounds like they're calling for a real shift in consciousness, not just like changing policies, asking us to reevaluate like our values and priorities, to move away from this purely materialistic mindset and embrace a more holistic vision of progress.
Yeah, that's right. PROUT sees material well-being as important, but it emphasizes that true progress also encompasses, things like personal growth, spiritual development, and social harmony. They believe that all of these aspects are like interconnected and essential for creating a truly fulfilling and sustainable society.
That makes me think about how they talk about the importance of cultural diversity. They don't see it as something to be feared or homogenized, but as a source of strength and innovation. It's a refreshing perspective, especially in a world that often seems to be moving towards greater uniformity.
I agree. PROUT values the unique contributions that different cultures can bring to the table. They believe that a truly just and sustainable world would embrace and celebrate this diversity rather than trying to suppress it.
It's a lot to take in. I mean, we've covered everything from the decline of capitalism and the rise of new global powers to cooperative economies and the importance of spiritual growth. It's clear that PROUT is putting forward a very different vision of the future.
It certainly is. And whether you agree with all of its proposals or not, I think PROUT offers a valuable challenge to the way we think about the world and our place in it.
It forces us to question our assumptions, to imagine alternatives to the status quo, and to consider new ways of living together on this planet.
Exactly. And that's perhaps the most important takeaway from this deep dive. The future is not predetermined. It's something we actively shape through our choices and actions.
So for you listening right now, think about what resonated with you from this exploration of PROUT. Are there elements of this model that you find appealing or inspiring? Are there aspects that you question or disagree with? Maybe this has sparked your curiosity to learn more about alternative economic models or ways to get involved in creating a more just and sustainable world. Whatever your takeaway, the important thing is that you're engaging in these critical conversations and considering the possibilities for a different kind of future.
Because ultimately, the future belongs to those who dare to imagine it and work to create it.